Hi guys. I wanted to talk a little bit about Animal Farm. It's a book that I had to do in school many years ago. And right now I'm looking at the Black Manosphere and, history repeats itself. Now, I know a lot of people never read Animal Farm because there's a cartoon version for those who don't want to read it, or there may even be a movie. But the gist of it was about communism in Russia. And basically how you had the first wave that started with Lenin, and after that Stalin took over and changed the original idea of communism. And today you can see how it's implemented, which someone could say is a third or fourth wave of how communism would be implemented. Now, what does that have to do with the Black Manosphere? The Black Manosphere, I believe, started with people who were upset with what they call the gynocracy. And somehow these people felt that they were being red-pilled on the fact that the real problem was a gynocracy. But here's the issue with that. The issue is, and you'll see it in Animal Farm, there's a whip. The farmer would keep the animals in the pen and the animals ended up revolting. The whip, think about it. In the Black Manosphere, the first version, 1.0, the whip is the gynocracy. What is a gynocracy? You have a theocracy, which, the clergy leads. You have a democracy, which is led by the people. And they're saying now a gynocracy. Gyno would say women, so led by the women. Now, my question to anyone who is so red-pilled on the gynocracy, you are telling me that men are being controlled by black women. Black men are being controlled by black women. This is a hard pill to swallow. Because in my life, I grew up in a two-parent household where my father took the lead in the home, and I grew up and I take the lead in my own household. I've never been under a gynocracy. I have not experienced that before. Even in the world that I live in now, I've never experienced that gynocracy. Maybe that gynocracy has something to do with the fact that people don't get married and men do not play a role. A lot of men do not play a role in their children's life. So therefore, these children grow up to be, they say what? Women made? Whatever they want to call it. And so what's happening is that people think that gynocracy is the issue. And they think that's the red pill. But I can tell you that's nonsense. And, before the gynocracy, someone could say that whip was racism. And I would agree with them 100%. Back in the 50s, I would say 100%. Anytime before the 50s, racism was holding down black people. There is no doubt about it. But today, that's not a big issue. And I don't say that callously. When we look at the black community right now, what are the real big issues? The big issues are drug dealing. Because back in the 70s and 80s, drug dealers used to sell drugs to who? Who did they sell it to? They sold it to the women. And where did the women get the money from? Welfare. So it was an economic system. Women got welfare and drug dealers sold them drugs. And then these drug addicted women raised the children. And then these children grew up to become criminals. So that's one of the problems I would think about, right? The next problem would be gangbanging. And that's going on right now in most black dominated cities. Gangbanging, it's a culture. A culture where a bunch of guys decide that they're going to run turf. And in having this turf, they're going to fight against each other. Who is doing this? Are these educated lames? Or are these Pookies? And who is doing the drug dealing? Are these educated lames or are these Pookies? Now let's understand what a Pookie is. A Pookie is not just a poor person. A Pookie is a non-productive person in society. Actually, these Pookies harm society. Next thing is pimping. these guys found out, oh, hold on, we're getting money from welfare. So women get the welfare money and they sell the women drugs. So they get the welfare money and they use it. So they say, oh, hold on, we can now sell these women, sell their sexual favors and make money off of it. So then you had now pimping. Who was doing pimping? Was it educated black men doing it, or was it the Pookies? So pimping now brought in a culture of really crass and obscene materialism. And you see it in the videos, the music videos. Yeah. Women twerking, cash being thrown at them. Who is doing that? Then you had the next one, which is scamming. And so, all manner of trickery going on, stealing from seniors. All of this became a thing. Now, this is one that I would say both educated lames and the Pookies get involved in this. So I will be very fair with that, because sometimes an educated lame, does this through a more sophisticated method. But the Pookies do this on the street. Then you have robbers. People who go and rob stores in their vicinity or rob houses. And this is what destroys any community. So when the robbers, the gangbangers, the pimps and everyone destroy the community, the businesses go, there are no jobs. So what happens is the community is dependent on welfare. That's the only game in town, because no one is coming in to buy whatever the pimp has, because they're not interested in that. So what's happening is these communities get hollowed out. No tax dollars. We saw this with Detroit. Detroit was a mecca at one point. Everyone wanted to go there. They're building cars there. There are lots of factories there, everything. And people left the South and went to Detroit. And when they went to Detroit in the 20s and to the 40s, they were able to join the middle class and do well. When the factories, when you had issues with the auto industry and all of that stuff, the white man bounced back, but the black man did not. And one of the big issues that a lot of black people don't understand is a lot of people turned to selling drugs, pimping, gangbanging. And what happened is Detroit became an unlivable place. And that's the problem that a lot of people in black YouTube don't understand, is that by celebrating Pookie culture, the baby, the Kodak Black and all of that crap, wherever these guys go, the place becomes unlivable. If these guys go to a party, that party, they take goons, and those, one rapper goon sees another rapper goon, and there's trouble. So people don't want to invite them to parties. And it's the same thing with a community. No one wants them in the community, because they will tell you they're protecting you from something, but they're not protecting you. They're protecting you from another Pookie. And that they can't protect you from Pookie. They can't even protect themselves. So as these communities hollow out, people start to, like, the educated lames are the first one. Anyone who's educated and can have a job, whether it's as in the civil service, even the DMV, anywhere, they're gone. So they move to the suburbs and they move out, and the community just has anyone who can earn anything, do something with themselves, they leave. So what's left is a whole bunch of Pookies. And go back and look at what happened to Detroit when it was just filled with Pookies. Houses started to sell for $800. $800. And what happens is Pookie does not generate value. Because what Pookie does, he destroys anywhere he goes. Because he lives off of a system of respect and who's the strongest man. He commands and demands respect. Now how I can always recognize a Pookie, he is both a victim and a victimizer. He does it both the same. He will rob a person, he will kill a person, and he will say after, my life was hard. This happened. That's why I did it. And this is the problem that a lot of people have seen in the community, and they want to see it fixed. And yes, people are right. Educated lames left the community. So therefore, what right do they have to tell the community what to do? Because when the educated lame left the community, that was a counterbalance voice against the Pookie. But the Pookies created a system within these ghettos of no snitch. And no one can live in that place in any safety. So people leave. And then when Pookie gets it on his own, guess what? Now he has to leave himself. Because now there's no services. Like Detroit. Some people are going without water, going without electricity. Because after a while, services leave the community. Because there's no tax base. So Pookies need to understand that it's not a gynocracy that causes this. It's the Pookie culture that causes this. And let me reiterate, Pookie is not a poor person. Pookie is not someone who lives in the hood. Pookie is someone that abides by Pookie culture. No snitch. Demanding respect for just being a man. Someone who believes that they are a victim. Someone who victimizes others, robs them, assaults them. That's what a Pookie is. And so when you see people say, hey, we're not going to support this Pookie system, that's what they're talking about. And anyone who says, hey, Pookies and educated lames and everyone, no. They can't work together. Pookies have to reform themselves. Because wherever Pookies go, they will destroy it. It doesn't matter. Wherever they go, they'll destroy it. They go to a party. Listen to Chris Rock tell you jokes about a club. He would tell you black people can't have anything. Go back to that skit. A club opens up, a movie theater opens up. What happens? They shoot up the club. They shoot up the movie theater. Go back to it. It's a very common skit among comedians. Everyone knows it. Who does it? Educated lames? No, Pookies. It's a Pookie culture. And if people can't recognize that this Pookie culture is the root of the problem, they're fooling themselves to think it's a gynocracy. Now think of the stupidity of that. A gynocracy. The funny thing is that black men don't understand that by being men, they hold a lot more privilege than women. And so therefore a black man, and it's sad, holds more privilege than a black woman by virtue of being a man. It's not something that we should be proud of, but he holds more privilege in society. But the victim mentality tells a man that that woman who is lower on the privilege spectrum has greater power over him. That's stupidity. That's not red pill. That's stupid pill. So let's go back to the fact that the real issue is, and you know what, I listened to a creator, and I won't call his name, but he spoke of going to school and being beaten up at age 7 and having to fight back and all of that stuff. And he said, Pookies are not born, they're created. Now my question to that creator is, if you were in a system that you were beaten up at such a young age and had to fight for yourself, and you kept on, you had to fight all through your life, what kind of culture was that? What kind of system was that? Was it the women that created that problem? Now, when you got older, you knew that there were gangs. Who do you think forms those gangs? Is it women? So stop fooling yourself that someone else is the problem. And this is the biggest issue that I find with Pookies. They cannot figure out that the problem is themselves. They cannot figure out that, listen, you have to break the cycle. It's difficult. I won't lie to anyone. It's difficult. Because if you are in a community where there are 500 Pookies and you are one person trying to break out of the system, that's hard. And I will not minimize that. But what I will say to anyone That is your battle. That is your challenge. Your challenge is not women. And the funny thing is, when people say the gynocracy, what's the end? To what end? Like, what are you going to do? In my life, as I said, I didn't even know what the hell they were talking about in terms of a gynocracy. That sounds like a scapegoat. And so that's why Pookies need to understand that you have to improve yourself. And you have to start with yourself. And when you improve yourself, then you'll get what you want. Now let's talk about women, because you guys love to talk about women. Always thinking this way. If a woman wants to rest in her femininity and she wants a luxury lifestyle, that would probably take about $250,000 a year income. Now, if you earn that and she rests in her femininity, I guarantee you'll get submission. That woman will cook your food, take care of you, all of that stuff. You'll get submission because you will select that person based on that. Let's say that you got a woman who was more humble and was willing to live, on $80,000 a year, and she would go to Goodwill and shop, or Salvation Army and stuff, or whatever it is, just to make things work. And she would work, and she can stay home and you go and work. Yeah, $80,000. She will submit. But what if you earn $40,000, which happens to be about the average of what black men earn? You cannot allow any woman to rest in her femininity. So therefore, the most you can do is live, have your family basically survive. But to thrive, you're going to need about 80,000. So both of you have to work. How do you expect a woman who's earning the same as you to submit to you? That makes no sense. And that's the nonsense that I think is being preached. So what do? You have to level up. And your competition is in the arena of men. It's not in the arena of men and women. So therefore, you have to go out there, get your certification, get your skill, and that's it. That's what I keep saying the manosphere has to focus on. If it focuses on the gynocracy, it is focusing on a fantasy. So Pookies need to understand that the good Pookie is the reformed Pookie. Anyone who is still doing the victimization of people is the problem, and we must call it out. Thanks, guys.